Anthony Joshua has done wonderful, wonderful things for British boxing. In a high tide, all boats rise high, and he's been that high tide economically. He's not been held to any different standards than other people have. Certainly not by me, if his accusations about me or Jim or anyone else, whether it's Gareth A. Davis or whoever else he's taken a swipe at. Right? The bottom line is that all people have done is looked at his body of work and made observations about it. And they've looked at Fury's body of work and made observations about it. So when someone like me turns around and goes, "I'll leave off that," by the way, the same Dillian White that's now fighting Anthony Joshua that Tyson Fury destroyed this time last year or a little bit earlier. When Tyson Fury puts in an inauspicious performance against Otto Wallin, gets criticised. When he fights a pup of a fight against Derek Chisora, he gets criticised. Now they're potentially talking about the Ngannou fight, gets told by people like me, Jesus Christ, why would the WBC champion of the world be fighting that particular fight? All of those criticisms, right? But when someone says somebody that lost his heavyweight championship of the world to the Pillsbury Doughboy, then goes and loses to a cruiserweight, hang on a second, that's kind of not where we would expect Anthony Joshua to be. That's an unfair attack.
Well, it's interesting.
This is the former heavyweight champion of the world. He should not be getting a WBC belt. He should be getting a whining BC belt. Because it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
He talks about haters and people who want me to do better. There are two people. He said there are two categories: haters and people that want me to do better. Now, forget the haters, because at the end of the day, you're never going to convert this. But I think all of us as British boxing fans, people who watch boxing on a regular basis. Yeah. Of course we want him to do better.
Of course we do.
Of course we want him to be a success. Jerome Franklin, the last fight that he had, is that right? He came on talking to us about the fact that he had to knock him out. The narrative before the fight was it's got to be a big knockout from Anthony Joshua. That didn't happen.
To be fair, I don't think Anthony said that himself. I think that was said about him.
He said he wanted a big performance, didn't he? He was beating that up.
But the bottom line is the narrative that was spun around him, spun around by Eddie, spun around by everybody else, and to some extent spun around by propositions like ours, that there needed to be a reaction. The Anthony Joshua express train was becoming derailed, and it needed to be an example of him getting back to basics. What the bleeding hell is critical about that? There are people, I remember sitting in this conversation with me and Eddie Hearn having this stupid set to for an hour, orchestrated by DAZN and talkSPORT, to have this discussion about what I said about Eddie, and people come off air and said, all the people like me said, "Oh, Simon Jordan won that conversation." All the people that liked Eddie said Eddie Hearn won that conversation. The bottom line is, if people don't like Anthony Joshua, they'll not like anything he does. And if they don't like Tyson Fury, they'll not like anything else he does.
But most people really in the world of
But boxing, they're so fragile, Sam. They get all bent out of shape and they all get their knickers in a twist. And it's the worst thing in the world for someone like me to collide with them, because I couldn't give a monkey's what they think of me. I don't need their interviews. I don't need a relationship with Eddie Hearn. I couldn't care less if I never saw him again. I have no interest in prostituting myself. So I say to these guys what other people won't want to say. Some people think I'm being disrespectful. No, I'm not. I'm just thinking, I don't care. I'm going to ask you a question. What's the point of blowing smoke at someone's backside? If you think the Jermaine Franklin fight wasn't good enough from Anthony Joshua, why don't you say to him, "Geez, Anthony, I thought you were going to do a little bit more than that and keep out of range." He can then come back and say, "Well, hold on a second, you, blah, 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 blah." And then you've got a proper, insightful conversation, rather than this seeming necessity from all these sycophantic, saccharine nitwits in the YouTube world that sit in front of these people worried about their next interview. Ask these guys proper questions. They're supposed to be pugilists. They're supposed to be characters, substantial people that can push back against people that don't have informed views.
Do you know
it's
what we
nonsense.
want?
And Anthony whining about talkSPORT agenda. Oh, for God's sakes, man.
Yeah, exactly.
For
We've got the live
God's
fight on the
sakes.
12th of August. The reason for that is
it's a great fight.
We want to see a great fight between two British boxers. And actually, if Anthony Joshua does well, we'll be the first to sit there and say it was a terrific performance. We got very excited the night that he won live on talkSPORT against Vitaly Klitschko. That was here. We followed his career.
But also, when you're the biggest guy in the room, you're going to get the most attention. There's only one thing worse than people talking about you. It's people not talking about you. Anthony, you've got an express train of huge economic benefits that have come off the back of the positioning, both of your ability to communicate through the media and also because of some of your achievements. With that comes people observing on you. Grow up. Be a man. Why would you pick out a particular platform that gives you an enormous audience, that gives the boxing world an enormous audience, and say, "Oh, the only person that sticks up for me is Spencer"? And by the way, Spencer, no, you don't.
Well, listen, we can't wait for the fight. 12th of August, it's live on talkSPORT. And if you didn't see the press conference yesterday, it is available on the talkSPORT YouTube boxing channel, which is all over all of this. Again, giving these guys a platform to speak, but being held to account as well, because that's what we do on talkSPORT.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.